What if I told you that by changing a single setting in your gameplay options, you can turn your druid into this guy?
雷の呼吸一の型霹靂一閃
So, going into this build, this is gonna be a shred build for Druid, and before I actually go into all the boring stuff like gear, skill build, Paragon Board, I decided that I think the best way to showcase this build is to actually show a Nightmare Dungeon run that I did. This is a Blind Burrows Nightmare Dungeon run. This is a level 48 dungeon. I'm level 88, so these mobs will be 14 levels above me. Not supposed to be the easiest dungeon, but I wanted to pick something a little bit more challenging so you can see how this build performs. And we're going to kind of talk about the skills we're using and the rotations that we're using while watching this Nightmare Dungeon run. And the idea is to kind of give you guys a feel of how the gameplay looks, how it actually performs, what you can expect. Yeah, so kind of jumping into the build right here, obviously this is a shred build, and as you guys saw in the start of the video, after we enable the skill toggle behavior, toggle all settings that we showed at the start, this basically makes shred auto cast and auto target the next enemy, and because we're using primal shred, which is one of the shred advancements, which makes shred dash to every second and third time you use shred, it will dash to the next enemy. So basically by just pressing down shred and using the toggle setting that we showed at the start, it basically just automatically targets the next enemy, and you're just running around the map, dashing to everything, destroying everything at the speed of, won't say speed of light, but very, very fast, as you can see. And it's just a very fast, probably the best speed farmer build in the game, and it also feels great to play. And the way this build actually works is, besides shred, we will be using a couple of other abilities. First of all, for defensive purposes, we will be using Hurricane and also Cyclone Armor. In order to use these skills as a werewolf, we will be using the Tempest Roar unique helm, which might be like a downside of this build, but then again, like every endgame viable druid build, whether it being the Tornado Druid or also the Claw Druid, are gonna need some kind of unique to make them work. For the Claw, it will be the unique staff, and for the Tornado build, you're also gonna need Tempest Roar. So that just, it kind of is what it is. And Hurricane will not only help us defensively, but it will also help us offensively. We'll be using an aspect that makes Hurricane grant +2 ranks to all shape-shifting skills, which is all the skills we will be using in this build. Blood Howl, of course, is a shape-shifting skill, but Hurricane and Cyclone Armor also become shape-shifting skills because of the Tempest Roar, so it actually also benefits them. And Cyclone Armor is another one we'll be using. What Cyclone Armor basically does is anytime you use it, it kind of pushes all the enemies that are around you in a circular motion. So anytime you get like stuck in the middle of a pack, or you're blocked by mobs, you can use this Cyclone Armor to get you out of trouble. We'll also be using Blood Howl, which will give us not only a heal, but it gives us attack speed. So that will be very good offensively. And Grizzly Rage will be the ultimate we will be using. You're going to need the Dire Wolf aspect to make sure Grizzly Rage turns you into a werewolf and not into a bear. But Grizzly Rage will be giving us Unstoppable and a very big damage boost using the Werebeast aspect. Every time we critical hit while we are in Grizzly Rage, the next critical hit that we do will deal more damage. So that will be very nice for us. And basically what you want to do is you kind of just press down shred and use Hurricane off cooldown. Every time you engage a big pack of mobs, you're going to want to use your Blood Howl and save Cyclone Armor for defensive purposes. And that's basically it. You just run around and you destroy everything, like you can kind of see me doing here. And keep in mind, like, this is a level 48 Nightmare Dungeon, and I don't even have like the best of gear. I'll be showcasing that later, but you guys will see my gear is actually pretty trash. And this still works like very, very well. So this is actually a very, very strong build. And it's also very, very fun to play. Like you can basically see me just zooming around the map, destroying everything, mopping the floor with these mobs. Very, very satisfying. Yeah. And another thing you can actually do, I don't know if you guys seen me do it before in this video, but one of the things you can actually do with Cyclone Armor is anytime you engage damage resistance aura enemies, like you can see right now, Yeah, you can see me. I actually did that right now. So anytime you engage damage resistance aura enemies, the way that the damage resistance aura actually works is the nearer they are to each other, then the more damage they reduce. So you can kind of use Cyclone Armor to tear them apart, and that will help you kill them faster. Yeah, and that was also, as you see me destroy the dungeon boss. So let's quickly talk about the skills we're using over here. You want to take Storm Strike, 1 point, and go into Fierce Storm Strike over here. You're going to take 1 point into Heart of the Wild so you can max out Wild Impulses and Abundance. We're going to max out Shred and go into Primal Shred. You're going to max out Predatory Instinct and Digitigrade Gate. You're going to take 1 point into Cyclone Armor and take Preserving Cyclone Armor. 1 point into Blood Howl and take Preserving Blood Howl. 1 point into Ancestral Fortitude so you can max out Vigilance. Over here you don't take anything. You're going to take 1 point into Hurricane and take Savage Hurricane. 1 point into Elemental Exposure and max out Endless Tempest and Bad Omen. Down here you're going to want to take 1 point into Neurotoxin and max out Toxic Claws and Envenom. For your ultimate skill you will be taking Grizzly Rage and of course taking Supreme Grizzly Rage. 3 points into Defensive Posture and 1 point into Nature's Resolve. And for our key passive, we will be using Lupine Ferocity. So for the Spirit Boons, you're going to want to bond with your Eagle, so we can use 2 Eagle skills, and the Spirit Boons we're going to want to use are Wariness. We gain damage reduction from elites, good for survivability. You're going to want Scythe Talons, which gives us increased critical strike chance, which is very good for this build. You're also going to want Swooping Attacks, which gives you flat attack speed. We're going to be using Calamity, which will increase the duration of our ultimate skills. And we're going to be using Masochistic. This will make us gain heals every time we critical strike with shape-shifting skills, which is our Shred. So let's very quickly go over the gear for this build. Dire Wolf Aspect. We need this. This turns us into a werewolf instead of a bear every time we use Grizzly Rage. We now get movement speed and spirit cost reduction instead of damage reduction. This is not only very good for being fast, but this will allow us to spam our Shred. We need the Tempest Roar. This makes our Storm skills werewolf skills, so we can now use our Hurricane and Cyclone Armor while we are in werewolf form. Mad Wolf's Glee. This is very nice if you have it, but it's not a must-have. This will make us gain +2 ranks to all werewolf skills, which is all the skills we are using. If you don't have this, you can just use any kind of ancestral legendary chess piece with defensive affixes, and you can put a defensive aspect on it. For our gloves, we'll be using the Blurred Beast aspect. This will make us seek out poisoned enemies while we are dashing and also deal an additional burst amount of damage to them. This is very good because obviously we are applying poison damage every time we critical hit with our Toxic Claws passive. So this works very well with that. For our pants, we'll be using Disobedience and just try to get like as many damage reduction or armor affixes you can on your pants. And then obviously we're using Disobedience for even more armor. We're using the Storm Shifter aspect on our boots. This will make us gain +2 ranks to all shape-shifting skills while Hurricane is active. So that's all our skills. So for the weapon, Waxing Gibbous, this is actually a very important one. Every time we kill an enemy with Shred, we get a buff called Stealth. And if we break Stealth, which basically means just attacking while we are stealth, we gain guaranteed critical strikes for between 1 to 2.5 seconds. So every time we kill an enemy with Shred, which is the core skill we are using, we get guaranteed critical strikes for our next attacks. So this is very important for the build. You don't have to have it. It can probably work with just a one-handed axe and using any kind of offensive aspect. But if you can get this Waxing Gibbous, very, very good for the build. For our totem, we will be using the Accelerating aspect. This will make us gain attack speed every time we critical strike with a core skill, which is Shred. Attack speed means using Shred faster and more frequently, so it's just more damage. For our first ring, we'll be using Stormclaw. This basically makes every time we critical strike with Shred, we have a chance to deal lightning damage to the surrounding enemies, so this is good DPS. And for the next ring, we'll be using the Rampaging Werebeast. This is very important. It not only increases the duration of Grizzly Rage, but every time we critical strike while Grizzly Rage is active, our next critical strike will deal 10% more damage. So this actually accumulates very, very fast, and this becomes insane damage. So let's quickly talk about the Paragon. Like always with Paragon boards, there's a lot of things you can do and a lot of ways to go about it, but I'm going to showcase what I did. I took Exploit. Then over here, I took Ancestral Guidance and build my way into Werewolf. Up here, I took Spirit and worked my way into Undaunted, also taking Lust for Carnage, which is very good. And then down here, I took Territorial. So another good ones you can consider, and I see people using, some people use Fang and Claw. Some people use, let's see where it is. Some people use Tracker. And I've also seen people take Guzzler. Let's see, Guzzler over here. So those are kind of the ones you can consider. But this is just what I did.